Welcome, welcome. Happy April Fool's Day. Just a bunch of clowns getting ready for the carnival. That's us. And
I'm
today,
always ready for the clown fest.
We're not just the clowns. We're the whole circus.
the circus is talking about Elden Ring today. So
More like Smelden Ring. Am I right, fellas?
We're starting strong with the jokes.
So Elden Ring's been out for maybe a month now.
Yeah,
more?
like exactly.
About a month. And we have slightly varying different levels of completion. I've completed the game. Tip, you're very close.
I'm on like the second to last area.
Yeah, you're very close. And then Ryan is in the back end of the game right now. So we decided to gather our thoughts and see kind of how Elden Ring held up for each of us. We each have different varying levels of Souls experience. I played all of them. Tip's played all of them, and Ryan's played Bloodborne.
Yep, and just a smidge of Dark Souls 1.
Yeah, you got through like the first area of Dark Souls, and we didn't return to it because I guess we just got distracted.
Yeah,
or didn't want to.
No, the footage got lost. Remember, got like corrupted.
Did it? I don't remember.
We had the footage, but the audio didn't record. So
that's what it was. Right. Yeah, that's what I'm like. I think there was something that went wrong.
Yeah, we were doing a let's play
like
or
2 or 3 hours of it, and then
yeah,
didn't want to restart.
Well, you don't need a restart. But anyway, that's not the point. We're here to talk about Elden Ring today. So I guess we're going to start with kind of our spoiler-free general thoughts on what we thought of the game, and just some general things, and then we'll move on to a spoiler discussion. So just a heads up. So what did you guys think so far?
I'll let you start, Ryan.
Oh, geez. I have enjoyed Elden Ring, but at the same time, having played these games now, I've kind of realized that I don't think they're for me. So
that's fair.
I've gotten a lot of enjoyment out of Elden Ring, but I don't know if I would get Elden Ring 2, and I probably am not that interested in playing like the other Souls games. I think Elden Ring is probably this is probably the most enjoyment that I'm going to get out of all these games. And I did have a good time with it, but
how much did you enjoy Bloodborne? Because I know all the games are very similar in terms of combat and structure.
Yeah, I played Bloodborne because someone else wanted to play it with me, and I enjoyed playing it with the multiplayer aspect, but there were also portions of the game I had to do by myself, which I was able to do, but I also just didn't have any fun while I was doing that. I enjoyed playing it with other people, but doing it on my own, I'm like, this isn't as much for me.
Yeah, so it definitely sounds like the formula is not your kind of game, which is perfectly fair. These are games that require a lot of patience. They require a lot of learning from mistakes. And if you don't want to kind of fail a bunch of times, and especially if you don't really care for the combat system either, it's just not going to be a fun time. I completely understand that.
Yeah, you have to engage with these games on their terms. You can't just pick these up and do whatever you want and just bumble your way through. You have to actually engage with these systems and kind of sit down for a second and think about what you're going to do, which isn't really for everyone. And if it isn't for you, that's perfectly fine. I can see why someone wouldn't enjoy these games.
Yeah, I think for me in particular, as I play these games, I always am like, I'm going to round this corner and some enemy's going to friggin' backstab me, or I'm going to cross this rickety bridge and it's going to break halfway through and I'm going to die and there's going to be nothing I can do about it. It's just the feeling of this game is constantly out to get me. And I get why people like that, but it's not for me.
It is an unforgiving world for sure.
It is an unforgiving world.
They do a great job of creating an oppressive atmosphere in all of these, which I think is kind of the direction they were going in anyway.
Oh, they're absolutely going for it being oppressive.
They want nine times out of 10, they force you to die in the first 10 seconds of the game.
What do gamers love more than anything else? Being oppressed.
Of course.
True. Okay, we can end the discussion here. That's it, boys.
Yep, done. 0 out of 10.
Gamers
good day, everybody.
Make sure to review bomb. Get those 0s out of 10s.
Did you see?
Quick, what, go on?
Somebody You know how when you make your character, you choose body type A and body type B?
Yeah.
Someone was salty enough about that they made a mod for the game to change it to male and female.
That's extreme
God.
level of assault.
It's so stupid.
The most thin-skinned shit I've ever heard.
Anyways, continue, Gary.
Yeah, I just want to go on a slight tangent. You were talking about review bombing, and I hate like reviews on games are getting worse and worse as days go by. Like it's either a 10 or a 0. There's nothing in between.
Yep.
And
best game ever, worst game ever.
Really unrealistic because clearly, like the game's clearly not a 0. I don't care what you think. It's not a 0.
It's hard to have something be a 0. It has to be
unplayable,
like
essentially
completely unplayable, or like really just every mechanic just doesn't mesh in any way, shape, or form, and that's hard to do and have it actually get completed and released as a finished product.
Yeah. So what do you think about it, Tip?
Well, I have a little bit more experience than Ryan in Souls games. It's mean that I've played all of them except Dark Souls 2.
And oh yeah, you're a baby.
I know. The Dark Souls 2 came out like right at the ass end of PS3's lifespan. So I just didn't get around to playing because I got rid of my PS3 through PS4. Neither here nor there. But I would rate Elden Ring as of this moment as my second least favorite of the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
It has a lot of really, really good ideas. And I think it executes an open world a lot better than a lot of other open world games, basically like the Ubisoft formula or even like the Rockstar formula, where things are just like spattered across the map just to have like busy work for you to go like, hey, look, there's something over there, go and do it. The exploration does feel rewarded in this. But I feel like the other games just have a much stronger sense of identity and sense of, I don't want to say real, but like very deliberate game design. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's lacking in Elden Ring for a lot of it. So if I was just going to sit down and play one of them, I wouldn't play this one. I'd probably play like Dark Souls 3 or like Demon Souls Remastered or something. Like just that really deliberate game design and every step of the way feels really, really good. And that's lacking in this one.
Right. And I think we're going to get into that a little bit more. But you definitely lose the consistent challenge that everybody experiences. So what I've noticed with previous Souls games and then this game is that in the previous titles like Dark Souls, everybody had a consistent challenge experience. Like, oh, like yeah, Ornstein and Smo, they're like the wall. It's terrible experience. Yeah. We love it. But in this game, I'm getting a lot of different opinions, which normally would be good, but I feel like the Souls games really strive on having those shared experiences of challenge and overcoming that challenge.
No, I'd agree, because the community always comes together. Everyone makes memes about the same exact bosses. Everyone jokes about like, man, that one stretch of area, like think like Sen's Funhouse. Like everyone jokes about Sen's Funhouse because the game just screws with you for like the 2 or 3 hours since you're in that fortress.
It's so funny.
And it's so fun. Like, and everyone just kind of like comes together and commiserates on their misery. And you can't have that as much in Elden Ring because you can have 6 people play it and all 6 of them ran off in 6 different directions. And so there were like wildly different soul levels. They have different equipment. They have different spells at their disposal.
One person's playing with 2 other co-op people at the same time and spamming magic.
Exactly. Like it's really strange, like how different your experiences can be like right from minute 0.
Yeah. Cause like some of the bosses, cause we've been playing with Ryan a bit for mostly, I would say a significant co-op experience. And like some of these bosses are cakewalks. Like it's insane how it's like below what an easy mode would be on some of these bosses.
It's this weird, and this is like a problem I have with a lot of games in general, trying to like balance a campaign that supports a single player and a multiplayer experience, because then it kind of just fails at both, because it's really hard to juggle both at the same time. And in the case of Elden Ring, it seems like early game, it was definitely like single player was doable, but like as I've been progressing through the late game, like how the frick was I? Did they expect me to do this boss by myself?
Yeah, we're gonna talk about balance for sure.
But then we do it with multiple people, and it is like hilariously easy.
Yeah,
so there's like not a good middle ground.
And it's always been historically, like if you're playing in co-op, the Souls games have always been pretty easy because they're balanced around one person usually.
Yeah. I mean, they buff bosses' health and everything, but like that's still
yeah,
not
they
enough
nerf your damage or buff their health or
Yeah.
whatever. But so it's still a pretty big boost. But I feel like in Elden Ring it's like amped up to 11, which is how many tools you have. The game kind of goes on autopilot if you engage with those.
Yeah.
So
your overarching thoughts.
I mean, so my thoughts. I really enjoyed the game to begin with, and I still think it's a pretty good game. And everything I say about this is I still think it's great in terms of just overall quality. But in terms of a Souls experience, and it is a Souls experience.
This game is Dark Souls 4.
It's Dark Souls 4, essentially. I think the more I played it, the less I enjoyed the open world because of balance reasons, and then some other design decisions which we'll go into. I think kind of detracted from what I'm looking for in a Souls game. But I will say that the exploration, at least early on, was really fun, and it was extremely exciting finding like a cave somewhere. But the open world, I think, does lose its luster towards the end because you get repeat content. A lot of times you're going to be stuck into a certain build. You're not like I think it's like 75% of the items you won't be able to use because they just don't fit with your build. And on top of that, if you do want to use something, you have to upgrade it to your current level, which you might not have the ball bearings for, which are a random chance to find, or not a random chance to find, but you'll have to find it in the open world. And it's kind of
huge. So like,
I felt like I had the wiki open on this game a lot more. I usually don't want to do that. I usually try to do a first one blind, but I felt like with this, I would, if I missed the ball bearings for the smithing stones, I would have lost my mind.
There were definitely points where it's like, I need this, and I'm not gonna go look for it. I just am gonna look up where it is.
Yeah,
for sure.
It,
particularly with the stones, I was like, I just need an 8. Where I need one. Where is it?
I think it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
With the open world design, because on one hand, they fix the issue of the open world being meaningless, but on the other hand, you really don't want to miss the few items you really, really want. And you could just get all the stuff that you don't need and then miss the stuff that would really work for your build.
I feel like, I guess this would be a bit more like in depth, but you mentioned like the ball bearing items where like that's how you buy more smithing stones, and smithing stones are how you like branch out into different builds and like try new weapons and like try out just different things. I feel like those are not ball bearings, they're bell bearings, damn it. But bell bearings.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think those bell bearings should have been part of the main path. And by main path, I mean like literally you kill one of the main bosses and it drops from them. So like really get you to think about a build and to be like, hey, you know what? Yeah, I've been using this one weapon for 40 hours now, but now that I can just buy smithing stones, I could just build up any other weapon that I have to like at least +6, +7 or so. So like a good general amount of like its damage and like how you would want to play around with it. But you can miss those bell bearings extremely easily, and I'm baffled as to like that they're kind of like hidden away in random dungeons and crypts and stuff, and those really should have been part of like the main path.
Yeah,
Gary and I just did a dungeon the other day or yesterday, and I got a bell bearing out of that. And I'm like, that was the most pain in the ass dungeon that I've ever done, and there was a bell bearing at the end. But the other thing too, I was like thinking is like, they lock these weapons, the weapon progression over behind like bell bearings. Is like, why am I not just getting like a weapon at level +6 or whatever when I'm in the +6 area? Like, why are these bosses dropping their weapons at like base level? Why do I have to go find smithing stones and stuff to level them up?
I will say that if you find the bell bearings, it's probably the easiest it's been to upgrade equipment.
For sure.
Because you can just buy everything and get it up to +24. And I think the only thing you can't buy is the last upgrade.
Yeah,
so you need to choose. And I wasted all mine,
stones.
Which is kind of unfortunate. So I'd have to do New Game Plus, I think.
I think you can only get like
3, 4.
I was gonna say like 4 or 5 of each.
I probably
4 and
missed
5 normal and 4 and 5 somber.
I think I missed a couple, but there's definitely a few weapons I want to try.
Completing a quest, like with the major quest lines. And so if you messed up the quest line at any point, which you did because the game is huge, I guarantee you missed an NPC at some point. You're probably only gonna get like 2 per playthrough unless you look it up.
I'm glad they added the names of the NPCs like to the map. I guess like that would work in the middle of a quest line. Like even if you don't know where they are, will it still tell you where they are on the map? Oh, it won't.
So
find them
it
randomly?
tells you where the last time you saw that NPC
Oh.
was. So if their quest moves them to a different spot, you still have to find them again.
So it's still impossible. Gotcha.
So yeah, you still have to just bumble your way around to find the major NPCs, which is a pain. But yeah, I mean, you said it's like the easiest ever been to like change it up and do things. And I also agree because you can respec extremely easily in this game.
I like the respec
want
system
you
a
to
lot.
do that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to do the respec system is tying it to. I mean, it's the same way in 3, I think, right? You can respec in 3 using an item.
I think you can. I'll tell you right now, I have never respec in a single Souls game until this one. So it might have been possible before, but it's just so in your face. They're like, hey,
yeah, it's in your face.
This is how you respec. We give you 12 of these per playthrough or 14, however many it is. Like, you should just play around with builds.
Yeah, I think I was an int dex to begin with, and I'm like, I didn't really want to do int dex. I was kind of just because I started deprived or whatever the deprived thing is in this one, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to use what I find. I ended up finding int dex stuff because there's int dex stuff everywhere in this game. And I'm like, okay, I want to respec into my strength faith build, and it was super easy to do. And I think you find the item, you're able to find the item or a couple of them early on.
I think I had 3 of them before it opened up.
I had 2 or 3, and then they like throw them in your face at a certain point. If you go to that one area, you get like 6 of them.
You do. It's kind of hilarious.
So I think I still have like 5 in the back, in my backpack. So they give you more than enough for a single playthrough.
Yeah. I think for my final thoughts on like the overarching stuff before like we delve deeper is, as you said, like when you first start exploring and doing everything, like, it feels really good. And I would say the first like 20 to 30 hours of this game are practically magical. Like they're perfect. The sense of exploration, the sense of where you're going, finding new weapons, finding new summons, like finding just like random mini bosses and things. It feels really, really, really good. And then basically everything after that, it just kind of started to grate on me a little bit more, irritate me a little bit more. And it just felt like it was kind of wasting my time. And that makes me laugh because 20 to 30 hours is about how long every other Souls game is on your first playthrough. So I was just thinking like I would have beaten the game by this point, like, you know, Bloodborne or Dark Souls 3 or whatever, and just like been on my New Game Plus already and like know where I'm going for, like finding new things. And on this, I was like maybe a quarter of the way through the game.
Yeah, I think I ended at like 80 to 100, which is insane for a Souls game. It definitely overstayed its welcome, I feel.
Yeah.
It's genuinely surprising how you're even just in like a single like dungeon or area, and I'm like, I gotta be close to the end, right? And it's like it just keeps going. It's like they just were like, no, put in another area. It's like, who designed this? How much money do you guys have? Like, where did all this all come from?
Can we start the spoiler discussion now? Because I want to kind of bounce off that.
Well, I mean, I was just saying, like, my final thing for me personally was just, I think this game is good. I still like it, even though I said it's like my second least favorite Souls games. I still adore this series.
Yeah,
I think it has some really major design issues. And I think those first 20 to 30 hours were so fucking good that it basically carried the rest of my play experience. And like my final thing, if you're like trying not to get any spoilers on it, if you're playing this game, do not try to do everything. Just kind of like find some things. If you're like, oh, hey, that cliff looks interesting. That like little crypt looks like neat.
Mhm.
Oh, hey, there might be a boss over there. Like explore kind of a little bit. But if you try to do everything, this game will piss you off to no end.
There's too much.
Yeah.
And you'll come across a ton of repeated content if you do that.
Yeah. That'd be my like warning to anyone who hasn't picked it up or like hasn't really delved too far deep into it, is try not to do everything.
I agree.
Yep. Yeah,
But if you want to
all
$60.
I was gonna say I spent the full $60 on it, and even though I'm saying that I'll probably never play one of these games again, I feel like I got my money's worth, and I've had a lot of fun playing it. I just am like, I don't think that I'll pick another one up, but I have enjoyed what I got out of this one.
All right, let's just kick off the spoiler discussion. And so with the spoiler discussion, I mean, it's kind of no holds barred. I'm not going to spoil the very end of the game for Tip. Essentially, everything's fair game up to the snow area, I guess.
That's what Sam like, because I'm at the Haley tree. So
the Haley tree. That's the all the way to the top area, right?
But that's the quote unquote secret area in the
That's the secret area. Okay, yeah. It's secret, not secret.
Which I think is like legit the second to last area.
I went to that after I beat the game.
No, but I mean, like in terms of areas that you actually find like an entire new dungeon, or not entire, like entire new like maps. I think it's the second to last area.
Yeah,
that you find. But you should probably do it post game. It seems like it's tiered for post game.
It definitely is, especially the boss in that area, which I think is the super boss of the game. Even though I thought it was easier than another boss, which
I know which boss you're talking about.
Did you get to the duo?
Not yet, but you've mentioned it so much. There's another Godskin duo in the game. Fun fact.
Is there a?
And it's actually a duo where it's the noble and the apostate together.
It's
not a quartet. It's actually a duo.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry. Off topic. Let's start with our discussion of the open world, the map, and the areas. So I really like the layout of the map and how it kind of funnels you towards content and still allows for exploration if you so desire. So I think Limgrave is a pretty much perfect starting area. It has a lot of small dungeons and content to get you going. And even though the game funnels you into the castle to begin with, if you decide to go there first, you're just going to get stomped. So I think the difficulty works the best in the first couple areas because of that, because of the castle itself being a little too hard from the get-go.
Yeah. I mean, because the graces immediately lead you towards Stormvale, and you're probably going to get your ass kicked by Margit, and you're probably going to be like, well, okay, I'm kind of like undergeared, underleveled, whatever, and just explore any other path, find new dungeons, find new mini bosses. Maybe you'll go to the southeast to go to the Weeping Peninsula. That area is way easier than Stormvale. Beat all of that, come back to Stormvale. Like it progresses very, very organically.
Yeah. And I like how it wasn't afraid to throw you into Caelid with that trap box to begin with.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, it's definitely telling you, yeah, you're allowed to go here if you want, but it's going to be a terrible time because it's like a level 80 area.
Look at how miserably we designed this area. Everything's red and there's blood everywhere.
I'm in
Bro, I'm straight up not having a good time.
They emphasize it more because they throw you in the middle of the mine with a bunch of those.
With like, a friggin' auto-target bugs that just shoot like a million projectiles at you that will chase you.
Have you heard of our Lord and Savior Sidewinder missiles? Because that's what those things are.
Oh, God.
So stupid.
Yeah. So, I mean, and then generally, the farther north you go in the map, the harder it gets. But they give you a couple of areas to begin with varying levels of difficulty to kind of play around with. And I think you can go straight to Liurnia if you take the outside route. If you don't even want to go to the castle yet, if you're still struggling for some reason, you can straight up go to the next area and get some more experience.
That is what I did. I straight up skipped the castle and I went to the second area.
Yeah. So
could you just keep skipping things and just go to the end?
No, not to a certain point. You need to to get up the elevator. You need to kill some bosses. I forget which one.
I think you just need 2 great runes. So whether that's from Godric or Radon or Renala, whoever it is, I think you just need 2 great runes. No, because you don't have to take the lift. What am I saying?
I was going to say we literally. That's how we didn't take.
We went the back route.
You could take the coward's path, and I think
that leads you to
the coward's path.
The
you could just
Atlas
do the capital
plateau.
Yeah, the Altus Plateau, and you can just
I guess you can get into the capital doing that. But then you can't get past the capital without fighting the boss there, I think.
No, because I mean it's blocking.
So that's the question: is
lift.
How many of the main bosses are optional then?
It seems like I think
most of them.
Most of them. I think the only one you have to fight is Margit.
I don't think you even need to fight Margit if you can just skip. You can just walk past the. Oh wait, no.
Yeah, Margit's his real name. No,
or
no, fight not. Anyway,
they all have the same name.
The Omen dude, because you fight him twice, and one of them is it's like an illusion, and the second time you fight him is the real time, actually at the capital. One of them is Margit, and the other one's like maybe it's like Mormit, whatever the hell is. I'm gonna call him Marvin. All right, so Marvin, you fight in Stormvale Castle, and then he's actually at the capital, and he has his real fight. I think you have to fight Marvin no matter what because he has a spell that's blocking the great lift of rolls. But you can't get to the snowfields unless he's defeated. There's probably like a glitch or something they could do, but unless he's defeated, his barrier on the great lift of rolls will not lift.
Right.
So I believe you have to kill him, and then after that, you can just beat the consecrated snowfields through the mountaintop of the giants and just gets the end of the game. So Marvin might be the only story boss you have to fight.
And the final boss.
Well, I mean, before the capital. Though.
Yeah, I think there's like a gauntlet of bosses before the end, kind of. I don't think there's a way to skip those because I think they're all like in the way.
I just got to I'm assuming I went through the snowfield and I just got to a spot where I think I have to fight the boss, the Great Fire Giant or whatever it's called.
Oh, yeah. Fire Giant, yeah, that's terrible.
Because I'm like completely walled off. I can't run past him. It's an arena.
Well, you also have to light that fire to like get the ending. I shouldn't even say the ending, but it to start the ending
sequence.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the end game right after that. Gosh, we'll talk about the bosses. And I guess in the next section.
But as to your point, the map does funnel you really well, where basically the more north you go, the harder it is. And if you ever get your ass kicked by going too far north, you can kind of just like find some other side path, find some other catacomb and get some gear, get some levels, and then go right back to the main path. Like it funnels you really, really, really well.
And it doesn't feel restricted either. Like it does it pretty well. Like I feel like, because they let you go to Caelid. And I think that's the biggest. If they didn't have Caelid there, I feel like it might have been a bit too restricted because it's all low level on the bottom.
Yeah.
But since they have that high level area right there in the beginning that you can go to, I think it kind of makes my perception of it a lot better.
And Dragon Barrow too. Because Dragon Barrow was Caelid, but even harder.
Oh yeah.
Actually, I think Dragon Barrow is soul level stuff.
And then you can go underground. Oh
yeah, I was gonna say you can also go underground from the first area.
To Sophria.
Yeah.
And that's a huge area.
You can find the Einsel River pretty early too.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. You can do a ton of stuff.
Siofra River was technically the first area I finished because I found it really early in the Mistwood Ruins. Went down and was like, "Oh, this area won't take me too long." And then like 10 hours later, I was like, "Holy shit, I'm still here!" Like, wait, what? And then I finished all of that, and then went to Stormville Castle and I destroyed everything there. But that was technically the first area I beat, which is kind of funny.
So yeah, I mean, I like the beginning few areas a lot, and then once I hit Atlas Plateau and then the snow area, which I guess are the two last super large open areas, the open world kind of started to wear on me a bit, and I didn't really feel like going into every single dungeon I found after that.
Yeah,
because about then is when you start seeing a bunch of repeated bosses, and then the dungeons all the catacombs and the mines.
So many catacombs.
Many mines. They look extremely similar and have the same kind of enemies and same traps and stuff.
Yep. It does start to get very samey, especially after like your third mine. And I was kind of like expecting, lots of different themed, like, you come across a cave, and I've realized it's like every time I come into a cave, it's either going to be a mine or a tomb, and that's it. This is the only two that exist. I think there might be like one generic cave.
There was a couple generic caves toward the beginning. One was like the poison cave. That was really dark, and that was pretty cool.
Oh my god, I forgot they had the generic caves in the first area.
Yeah, and they didn't do them.
And they never use those ever again. After that, it's only catacombs.
Yeah, I think it's very apparent.
Wow, I forgot those existed.
Like the one Patches is in.
Yeah, that was the one I was thinking of. I'm like, there was the Patches,
but that one's really small.
In a regular cave. Yeah, there's a couple like generic caves at the beginning, and so there's really like 3 whole themes that you can expect, and then after Limgrave, there's 2 whole themes you can expect when you're going into one of those, and
then you fight 20 tree avatars.
You find lots of tree avatars, lots of skelly boys, lots of
that one plant thing that drops the seed that has the same attack pattern. It's just a different flavor.
The ulcerated tree spirit. Yeah, fuck the ulcerated tree spirit. All my homies hate the ulcerated tree spirit. If I see another one of those by the end of the game, I'm gonna fucking scream.
Definitely not gonna happen.
Oh my god, I've already fought like 15 of those.
It'd be a shame if it had Scarlet Rot.
Oh, I've already found the Scarlet Rot variant. I've already fought like 3
And
of
I
those.
think you fight another one.
Jesus
The
Christ.
final boss is just 3 of them that combine together to make an ultra one.
No, that would be interesting.
Oh, all right, then never mind.
No.
You just
fight
fight
three of them at the same time. That would be terrible.
It would also be in the game. Like,
that would be
would
right
also
up
be
this
in the
game's
game.
alley.
yeah.
Before we start talking about bosses, they do so. Besides the open world, they have what is officially termed legacy dungeons, which are how most of the previous games were structured. So the castle is a legacy dungeon, and it has all the turns and all the secrets and all the
Shortcuts and
things. And I think for the most part, they were all very, very good. The Academy of Raya Lucaria, one of my favorite areas. I had to come back to the castle and find the other half of it because I straight up missed it. And I can't believe I did.
You mean Stormvale?
Stormvale, yeah. Sorry,
There are a couple castles.
Yeah, Stormvale Castle.
You mean where the other ulcerated tree spirit is?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, they're pretty expansive. I'm pretty sure that I skipped like half of Golden City, whatever it's called.
I really liked the Golden City a lot. It felt huge, and I definitely missed stuff, but like just going in and out of the alleyways and then finding secret things. Even if I fought that one boss a billion times, I forget what it was. The freaking tree thing again.
The ulcerated tree spirit is again
There's another one there
in the Golden City, and it's again in the sewers. I'm telling you, dude. If they didn't know what to put, they're like, we should have a boss here. They're just like, all right, cool. Control C, Control V, ulcerated tree spirit. Fucking I'm so tired of this stupid thing.
Yeah. But for the most part, the legacy dungeons I thought were a ton of fun.
I agree. I had to go far to say is like Stormvale Castle is one of their best designs dungeons
totally.
Like ever. It feels really good to explore Stormvale Castle, and it kills me that's the first area because not that the others are bad. I think Raya Lucaria is actually pretty good as well.
I love Raya Lucaria.
After those first 2, the other legacy dungeon areas don't feel quite as expansive. I'll be honest, you talked about Golden City like a couple times, like when we were playing together. I don't like Golden City. I think it's more convoluted than anything, and I don't actually think it's a fun area to explore in any capacity.
Oh, really?
But yeah, it's maybe it's just because I was getting irritated with like some of the like encounter design and stuff like that. But I just didn't really like the Golden City. I like the way it looks. I like its aesthetic, and I like the song that plays in it a lot. But as far as exploring the city, I didn't have fun.
I liked all of that, and I liked that it was kind of just different. It was just kind of like it kind of like mixed. I felt like it kind of mixed open world and legacy dungeon together. Which I mean, you know, it definitely wasn't my favorite. I liked Raya Lucaria and Stormvale better, but it was novel enough for me to enjoy. And then it led to the sewer, which surprised me. And that was the whole area.
Yeah, when the city has part 2, Electric Boogaloo. I actually think I like the sewer more than the city, to be honest.
I like the sewer in this game. As far as sewers go, I think it was par for the course.
Well, I think it's more the sewer at least looks different from a lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
And it plays a lot differently because the sewer's a maze, without a doubt. And so having to like get the mental map of where I was in the sewer and try to figure out like where the hell I was going, I actually had fun with because it felt like going through a labyrinth.
Yeah, I saw some people use the prism stones.
Yeah, that's what I did.
I keep forgetting I have those, so I ended up not. I used it at like one part in the game to like find out if I could jump off a cliff or not.
It is pretty useful for that.
But yeah. So bosses. Yeah,
bosses.
I have a lot of mixed feelings about the bosses. I think the main bosses in this game are pretty good, like Morgot or Morget, Marvin, whatever you call him.
So his first thing when you find him, he's the illusion, it's Margit. When you actually fight him, it's Morgot. I thought that's what it was, but I couldn't remember it. I'm just calling him Marvin.
Who's the boss of Stormvale then?
Godric. Who you might confuse with Godfrey or Godfrey. Godren.
Sir
It's Godric's
Gideon.
dad. Godric's father is also named in the game, and I was like, isn't that just Godric? Nope, it's his dad.
I thought that was Godfrey. No, that was
like great grandfather or some shit.
Wait, then who's Radagon?
Radagon is the father of the demigods and was married to Renala, and then later married to Marika, the actual goddess.
Okay. Cool.
Anyway. And Radagon might be confusing with Radon.
Well, Radagon isn't Radagon Radon's father?
Yes.
Okay. Also father of Ronnie?
Yes.
Who is also like dead?
Yes.
Anyway, I'm gonna forget all this in 5 minutes. But anyway, what was my point?
Boss design.
Bosses.
I think the main bosses were very good up till the end game, and then I think all the side bosses were mediocre to straight up bad. And I guess I can go into more detail. Anytime there was a duo boss, terrible. Absolutely terrible. The game really wants you to use spirit summons or the ashes of, or not, what are they called? Spirit ashes?
Yeah.
Or like co-op or whatever. And if you didn't want to do that and you were using like a melee build, you were having a terrible time. Just a straight up not a good time.
Oh yeah.
And on the other hand, if you use the spirit summons and stuff, like if you use the mimic tier, like you would just steamroll it. So I felt like there wasn't a good middle ground for melee players towards the end of the game.
I mean, even if you're not a melee player, the duo bosses still aren't fun because you're either getting slapped around by two bosses while you're trying to like cast. There's no way in hell you're doing incantations against a duo boss either, by the way. Those cast animations are 10 seconds long.
Yeah.
But sorcery at least could do a little bit of damage. So you're basically just going to summon, and if you're going to summon, then you effectively just turn the fight back into a one-on-one. So like, why bother having a duo boss?
Exactly. Godskin Duo broke me. I didn't use any summons or anything until that point, and at that point, I like, okay, screw it. I used Mimic Tier. I upgraded the Mimic Tier, and I used it. And then I just used it the rest of the game because I already broke. And the rest of the game was like I beat all the other bosses like instantly because it was a joke.
I did the first few duo bosses by myself. And again, it isn't really a challenge. It isn't really fun because what I had to do was effectively make it to where I'd get the bosses on the same animation lock. So I'd get them both attacking me at the same time. So one of my dodge rolls would dodge both attacks and just get them locked into attacking at exactly the same time. So if they get like off step and they're attacking at slightly different speeds, your dodge roll isn't going to matter. Your blocks aren't going to matter, like, because they'll just overwhelm you. So it was me getting the animation lock at the same time, dodge roll through it, hit like once or twice on one of them, rinse and repeat for like 15 minutes. It isn't fun. And I was like, I don't know why I'm doing this. And eventually by like the fourth or fifth duo boss, I was like, you know what? I don't care anymore. I summoned, turned the fights into one-on-one, and I would win in like 2 minutes flat.
Yeah, that's how I felt. I think the balance in this game is extremely poor in terms of, especially the bosses. They definitely wanted a very wide variety of play styles, but I think in doing so, they weren't able to finally tune it like they did in the previous games.
I'd agree.
So you either get steamrolled or you're doing the steamrolling. There is no in between.
I feel like there are so many summons in this game, though, that you could just, you're saying you pulled out Mimic Tier, which is by far the best one. So why don't you pull out a mid-tier boss
I could have.
Well, that's what I do.
Yeah.
I didn't do that.
I actually don't use any summons that attack. I only use summons to do like support type stuff. So I'm still doing like 95% of damage to bosses. And it still makes it stupid easy because as long as I can just have aggro pulled off of me for 8 seconds so I can flask up and then go back into battle, it makes it super easy. So again, it seems weird in that even if I'm using a summon that just doesn't attack, or if it attacks, it is like 15 damage, I'm still making the game really easy because I just have enough time to just stand back for 10 seconds, use an Estus flask, use a mana flask, put some extra consumables in my bar or something like that, and just go right back in. Like it trivializes combat.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is just having a damage sponge, because the player damage in this game, I feel, has bumped up significantly, or it's super easy to get to those big numbers compared to previous games. In the previous games, you had to do like red tier stone ring, get like a super meta weapon. and like do a specific build. But now everybody, you can just use bleed, or you can just do the death laser on magic, or what the heck is that called? The moon katana,
Oh, Moanvale, yeah.
Moonveil, or you can. So I was having trouble with strength builds for a while until the very end game when I could dual wield giant clubs, and then I would just jump attack, and then it would stagger enemies. So it was really really hard for me until that point where I could dual wield giant heaping clubs. And I feel like that's what every strength build boils down to, because everyone's just a super big nuker in this game.
Well, you essentially have to kill the boss fast enough to where it doesn't pull out its bullshit to kill you fast enough. It's everything is started to a DPS race of you want to finish in legit like 90 seconds, because anything past that, it's just going to kill you.
You want to time that stagger really right at the midpoint.
Yeah. Oh no. Oh, without a doubt, you would definitely guarantee that as soon as I got to like that 55% right before they get to phase 2, like any boss, I would try to get the biggest jump attack stagger and then just wail on their asses. And then as soon as I get into phase 2, someone like, I use these little like great shield dudes. That's what pulls aggro. Some of the great shield dudes, and I now have free reign to attack for the next like 25 seconds while they pull aggro. And I generally win the fight at that point, where it's just like I win. I got it down to to a science, and it just made. I started doing that maybe like 70% of the way through the game, or like through my playtime. And since then, I think I've beaten every single boss on my first try, maybe second on like a couple of them.
I think that's a very good point, because a lot of the deaths I've had in this game have felt like BS, because the bosses in this game, I feel like attack a million times in their combos. So before the patch, you straight up with any normal shield without using any shield buffs, you could not block one of their combos. It wasn't possible. It doesn't matter if you had the biggest great shield in the game. You could even Godskin Noble, which is relatively early in the game, his like piercing rapier combo, it was not blockable.
Yeah, he does like the 6 hits in a row.
Yeah, so
and then in phase 2, that does black flame damage. So even if you block it, it still hits you. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I feel a ton of bosses have moves like that where they attack a million times, and you can't block it. And if you get hit once, you're just going to be stun locked and lose a ton of health or die.
Yeah, they've definitely, again, it's that problem of trying to balance this game around working with multiplayer and single player. And they definitely found that spot in the middle, but it's not the sweet spot. It's the spot where it's really, really fucking hard for single player, and it's really, really easy for multiplayer. And then they balance that by giving you summons, which still, it can trivialize fights.
Yeah, I mean, you look at bosses like Ornstein and Smo, who are really like carefully crafted to be a good duo fight, where one is super slow but does big attacks, and the other one kind of gets in your face, and you kind of have to prioritize which one you want to get rid of first. Like, they have manageable moves and good telegraphed attacks where you can learn the fight. It's still an extremely hard fight, and a lot of people hit a huge wall there, but it doesn't feel like super cheap, like Godskin Duo, or
it feels well crafted, because
or like Double Crucible Knight.
Yeah, I mean, they actually have downtimes where like Ornstein will do like a 5-hit combo, and then like Smo will be like behind that, and he'll like be like winding up for a swing. So basically, each of them has a combo that they'll be using, and while they're using the combo, the other character might do like a poking attack, like a light attack, but they're not both doing 15-hit combos at the same time, which is what every duo boss in this game does. Where as soon as one of them starts a 15-hit combo, the other one's like, "Oh yeah, you're right. We should just fuck this guy," and he also does the 15-hit combo, and it's like, okay, like I either have to dodge 30 hits at the same time, or I have to block 30 hits at the same time, and that's just not going to happen.
One positive thing I do have to say about the bosses, a lot of them you can parry, so that was something I ended up doing quite a bit. I always had a parrying dagger on me. I found it quite fun to learn a boss pattern and get the parry in. I think there's only a couple of bosses I think in previous games you could really do that. I think the game that you were allowed to do that the most in was Bloodborne.
I think you can parry damn near everything. Like,
it's a lot of stuff. It's not everything though.
You just shoot them in the face while they're attacking. Or I guess technically Sekiro. Sekiro is entirely designed around parrying, but it's like a different system.
That's the most different though. I wouldn't count that as a Souls game. It just has like the Souls elements to it.
Yeah. No, it's strange. The bosses, I feel, just to reiterate, like they're either at a difficulty of like 1 or they're at a difficulty of 10. There was no in between for me. And
if they're at a 10, you have to make it. I made it into a 1 by using summon.
Yeah, because it just feels like the bosses are basically just cheating against me. And I'm like, all right, well, like I don't care anymore. I'm just going to cheat back, which I think is why a lot of people are doing like power stancing katanas with like bleed. That way they can just delete
melt it.
things in existence. Because like if boss is going to do 18 hit combos with infinite stamina and just steamroll you, then like I'm just going to steamroll you back. Like that just it doesn't feel like I'm doing a duel. It feels like I'm doing like a DPS parser check.
Oh, that is one thing that I like. I like that they brought the power stancing back from Dark Souls 2. It is worse though than it was in Dark Souls 2, because in Dark Souls 2 you could power stance 2 different kinds of weapons. Granted, it was hard to figure out which ones allowed power stancing, but you could have like a club and like a dagger, or like a great sword and a straight sword. This one they have to be the exact same type of weapon.
Yeah.
But I am glad they brought it back, because dual wielding was like not a thing in Dark Souls 1 and 3.
Yeah, you're effectively just having 2 different weapons for like 2 different weapon sets. So like, you know, the straight swords do like thrusting attacks, or you have like a halberd for like reach or something, but they don't really work together.
No. Ryan, what did you think of some of the bosses, or your boss experience? Because you've mostly had how many have you done solo and how many have you done co-op?
I've done a bunch of the smaller dungeons, catacombs by myself, and I did all of Stormveil by myself. Bosses are like usually my least favorite part of a video game in general. So I enjoy getting to them. I don't enjoy fighting them. So this game's like all boss fights, which is probably part of the reason why I feel like I'm growing gray hairs after playing this game. But I mean, like the ones that I have done aren't that I did by myself aren't too bad. There have been ones that we've fought together, and I'm like, I legitimately have no idea how I'm supposed to beat this thing by myself. But I guess I could, like Radon. What the fuck was that fight?
I had a Scarlet Rot Radon. I wasn't dealing with that as a melee character. Screw that.
There was
pre-patch Radon.
I came across a boss the other day. It was 3 crystal boys that also did Scarlet Rot, and I was like, fuck this, and I managed to do it. I'm like, I don't even know how I did that, honestly. But like, it's just like, that was such bullshit. I hate these. In that moment, it's mostly just me being like, well, that really pissed me off. I don't feel that nice, satisfying, like enemy defeated or enemy felled, like satisfaction, that the euphoria that is described by Dark Souls players from beating bosses. I usually beat a boss, I'm like, well, that fucking sucked. I'm glad it's over.
I think I've said good riddance, you piece of shit, after every boss fight for the last like 20 hours of gameplay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big difference from like playing. Like if I beat a boss in Sekiro, I was like ecstatic. I was like jumping up and down. Beating Madame Butterfly from Sekiro, she was She was infuriating me, but it was all
fight is so good.
Her patterns are so fun to learn, and it's so punishing. The one thing I will say that's super good about Elden Ring is that most of the time they put checkpoints outside of the boss rooms.
Yeah, yes.
Thank God. Because what I would always run past everything and get to the boss, because I'm not like, I already proved that I could get through the area. I'm just gonna I'm gonna gun it and go to the boss.
It's way faster anyways. So
oh shoot, I forgot. Huge negative for Elden Ring, the open world aspect, and there's like grace everywhere. You lose the areas themselves being challenged, and I think that's something that's been being lost ever since the beginning of Demon Souls. Like in Demon Souls, you had to go through an entire area and beat the boss, and then you get a bonfire. And in Dark Souls, it was pretty much the same thing, except maybe you'll have a bonfire in the middle.
I feel it was generally beginning, middle, ends.
Yeah, and like the areas themselves were challenges, like Sen's Funhouse. was a challenge to get through. Whereas in like starting from like Dark Souls 3 and especially in Elden Ring, that didn't feel like the case. They felt like cool set pieces and they were so fun to play through, but the challenge of getting from A to B was much less.
I'd agree. I was surprised at how many times I'd enter a new room and I'm like, oh shit, like that's a grace. And I'm like looking at my watch, like, did I find one like 5 minutes ago? Like, really? Okay.
There's been a grace or two where I'm like, I can literally see the last grace that I was at from here. Like it's right over there.
You talk about getting to the fire giant, or the grace right in front of the fire giant's room. You can literally see from the other grace that's like 100 feet away, and then that grace you can literally see the other grace that's like 150 feet away. Like the three graces on mountaintop of the giants are 30 seconds apart, and it blows my mind.
That, and you can just use your horse to run past everything if you really wanted to. They're really the only place you ever get that each area is somewhat of a challenge is in the legacy dungeons, and even then the graces are so close together in those that it doesn't feel the same. And I think that's part of the reason why I like Dark Souls 1 the most, is because the areas feel like challenges themselves, and it's not just the bosses that are the challenge, it's the world.
See, I say fuck that shit. Give me lots of graces. I don't want to have to do all that again.
And yeah, I mean that's
some bullshit enemy. We had it like it was that same fucking dungeon I was just complaining about earlier, where I saw the room and I'm like, I don't know what's gonna happen when I walk into this room, but some bullshit's gonna happen when I walk into this room. And what I was expecting is another thing that they like to do was like, I'm gonna walk in, I'm gonna grab the thing, I'm gonna turn around, there's gonna be like 6 enemies behind me or whatever. But they were like, no, actually, there's gonna be 2 enemies hiding behind both corners. Usually it's just one corner, but this time it was both corners.
See, I love that.
And some people thrive off that, and that just makes me angry. And because one, I'm like, shit, like it like makes me jump a little bit, and I don't get any sort of pleasure out of that. But like this guy takes out half my health bar, and now there's 2 of them, and the math adds up to my full health bar, so I die. And I'm like, that was just bullshit to me. Like
I feel like most of the time,
I was expecting something to happen. I'm like, it's still like they just 2-shot me, but they 1-shot me because they both attacked at the same time.
That I can see that being very infuriating. But I feel like for most of the scenarios, if you're being careful, you can see where the traps are laid. But like you have to be looking for it, and you can't.
I'm not gonna round every corner like there's an enemy behind.
You see, that's how you played the older games, though, and that was part of the fun. But I guess with the open world, it doesn't make too much sense to do that because there's so much.
We had literally just beaten that one mini boss that had just killed us like 4 times, and then I got ganked by 2 dudes hiding behind a corner that I had no idea was there.
And then we got back to that spot, and then I think we got invaded, and then got killed.
We got invaded, and we got killed.
Hell yeah,
I
dude.
hate this game. Anyways, you want to play it when we're done with this?
Maybe we'll talk.
Yeah. It's an experience, that's for sure.
Anybody have any other thoughts on the map areas, legacy dungeons, bosses?
How do you feel about riding horses and fighting bosses at the same time?
Don't like it. I think it's an underbaked mechanic.
No. Literally. So horseback combat in this game is a weird paradox of it's either really fucking busted or it's absolutely fucking worthless. With regular enemies being on torrent, you are untouchable because you can just sprint right past them, hit them once, turn around, sprint past them, hit them once, and you can just defeat enemies really easily. Any boss that wants you to like fight it with torrent, screw that.
Yeah.
Because torrent gets staggered by literally anything, kicks you off, and you are now stunned for like 10 seconds, and the boss just eats your fucking lunch. So no, any boss where they're like, hey, you should use the horse in this fight. No, I'm on foot because I can dodge way better on my own, just dodge rolling through shit than torrent can do for literally anything. I don't remember what boss it was. I think it was one of the Night Cavalry dudes. Like near the beginning of the game. I tried to fight the thing like 5 times in a row, kept dying on torrent. The first time I did it on foot, I deleted his ass from the face of the earth. And at that point, I realized I'm never using torrent for boss fight ever again. Screw it.
It's terrible. I hate it.
I think it's like weirdly, like it benefits like certain builds as well. Like if you're just using like a melee build, like good luck. But if you have a halberd, maybe you'll have a slightly better time.
I don't.
And if you're using range, then you'll have, well, you're still slow as fuck when you're casting on torrent, but you know, that's still, you know, better than nothing. So there were times where I would use torrent. But I will say, if I wouldn't even bother pulling out my sword on torrent because it's basically useless.
There were also tons of times where I was sure I was going to make a jump, or I was sure I was going to live a fall on torrent, and I didn't.
And the torrent's knees shatter, and you just fall off dead
to bits. It's extremely hard to judge some of the heights. You get so much more falling. I guess it's a lot more lenient in this game, but like it still has the effect of, since that leniency is higher, it's a lot harder to judge where that death zone is because you will instantly die.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense.
It's really forgiving until it's not.
Well, because in previous games you couldn't drop very far at all.
Literally, in Demon Souls, if you drop more than 5 feet, your character just explodes.
Yeah, because after a certain point, it doesn't matter how much health you have; it's just an instant kill. And so, since that range is a lot higher in Elden Ring, it's kind of hard to judge. Okay, at what point am I immediately dead? Whereas in Demon Souls, you're like, yeah, I'm definitely dead. But yeah, I hate Torrent.
Torrent is best boy or girl. Did they ever say it? Torrent's? It doesn't matter. Torrent is best goat, but also worst goat.
It's nice for running around, like for sure. Like getting from point A to point B I'll pull out Torrent, but
and it's cute. It has little reindeer prancing. Ching ching.
Fun fact: I didn't know you could double jump on Torrent for legit like 15 hours.
Oof, that's sad.
Yeah, I just didn't try double jumping. And there's like a couple things I'm like, it looks like I could make that if I could double jump. Like, shame that I can't though. And the only reason I figured it out is because I was just running along, sprinting along, and I was like, oh, cool, I'm cresting the hill. It wasn't a hill, it was a cliff. And I basically spammed X, hoping to jump backwards, and he double jumped backwards. And I was just like, what the fuck was... Can Torrent double jump? And yeah, it was legit like 15%.
Wow, that's impressive.
Gamer moment.
Yeah. So I did a lot of like early platforming things where they clearly wanted you to double jump. I did that with single jumps.
Sounds terrible.
Oh, it was terrible. I felt like an absolute freaking moron.
Now it's time for my favorite segment of the show, where we compare this to a good open world game, aka Breath of the Wild. As I will compare every open world game to for the rest of time.
Wow. Daring today, are we?
One thing that particularly stood out, Tip and I were talking about this way back in the day when we were playing Elden Ring. We were talking about how Elden Ring has the plethora of dungeons and catacombs to explore, caves, systems, and all this stuff, where in Breath of the Wild has shrines, which are similar but in concept, but not quite. And Breath of the Wild has like 140 of these things. If you get the DLC, there's like a shit ton of them. Yeah. And I don't think Elden Ring probably even has half of that. I don't think, which isn't the point I'm making. The point I was going to make is I never got tired of doing shrines. Like I always was excited to go into a shrine and be like, what am I going to do in this shrine? Unless it's like a test of strength, then I know exactly what I'm going to do in the shrine. But if it wasn't a test of strength, then I was like, what am I going to do in this shrine? And it was always like exciting and fun to figure out, unless I had to use gyro controls. But in Elden Ring, every time I walk into a dungeon, I'm always like, what dumb bullshit's going to await me this time?
So I think the reason for that is The Legend of Zelda it has a huge focus on puzzles as part of its gameplay, and all the shrines are essentially a different puzzle. And I think there's a lot more you can do with that than everything in Elden Ring has to be a combat dungeon.
It's all combat,
and it has to end with a boss. So I think that's one of the reasons why they got old, is because you really can't do something too much different if you're going to be doing that. Like obviously they could have done like different themes and things like that, but that might have been out of scope.
Yeah, and one of the things I thought Elden Ring was going to have going for it was I'm like, oh, I like very early on in the game, I walk into a generic cave, and then later on I find a mining shaft, and then later on I find a tome. And I'm like, wow, there's going to be like a wide variety of these things. They're going to have lots of variation. It's not just going to be shrines where everything's glowy and blue. This is going to be great. And then I realized that I had seen all three themes.
Everything's a catacomb.
And you know, for what it had in its slightly more varied aesthetic differences, it lacked in like gameplay differences for the most part. It was almost always just run around, kill everything, get cornered by something, find a tree, spear it to fight, get to the end, go through the poopy wall, fight a boss, and then get
a summon
something
that I'll never use.
Get a summon that I'll never use, or a weapon that I'm not kitted to use because I didn't level up faith, or
pretending that there are faith weapons in this game. What shit are you on? Full dex int.
There's an okay amount. It's not a lot, but
yeah, and you know where they all are?
At
the
the
capital
end of the game.
or later.
Yeah, There's 3 of them with 3 horns, 3 different sized horns.
Because the secondary is like based around the academy, which is all based around int. You just get like bukake with int weapons at the beginning because they're just just run around. You run around that second area, you're tripping over them. They're just throwing them at you constantly.
They love int and dex in this game so much. It's insane how many like int weapons, bleed weapons there are. Like, wow.
There's a lot.
And like everybody online used it because it was so broken. Bleed is busted in this game. Int is busted in this game because they just do so much damage.
Oh yeah.
Why would you ever use a big weapon when you could do more damage with a bleed?
Oh wait, hang on. Screw weapons and everything. What Brian was talking about the dungeons, and then Gary said something that I find is funny. He was saying that you can't really do puzzles in Elden Ring. Like the Elden Ring is definitely focused around the combat. So like each catacomb is really just another like dungeon or another like combat arena. And I would agree with that, except I don't, because the like 3 best catacombs in all of Elden Ring are actual puzzles and they're fantastic. And if like any of the catacombs did this, like more than these 3, I would have loved going to the catacombs because
which one are you thinking of? Because I'm thinking of one off the top of my head.
So is the Azuria?
I don't know them by name.
Okay, there are 2 of them that are slightly northeast of the capital. One of them is the Azuria's Hero's Grave. The other one is like, I think it's Azuria's Catacombs.
Oh, the Hero's Grave was good. Yeah.
So, well, no, because there's like 4 Hero's Graves and they're all like slightly different. But that Hero's Grave in particular, okay, I know. So Hero's Graves have a mechanic of one of 2 mechanics. Either A, they have these weird chariot things that are fucking huge. And if they touch you, you just instantly just disintegrate. Or B, they have light zones and enemies are made of shadow. And so you have to pull shadow enemies into the light before you're allowed to hurt them. Both of those mechanics are interesting. And I can't believe they only use the mechanics like literally twice for both of those. Like, okay, do that more. And then the other one is a dungeon or a catacomb, I should say, where the catacomb is confusing because you keep making turns and you're turning to the exact same room every single time. And you're like, that's so weird.
Ryan and I did that.
Because it's layered. It's literally the exact same room on top of each other. That is such a good design decision.
I was deja vu.
I was having deja vu the entire time.
Yeah, like, it was confusing, but then it clicks at some point.
And then you can get stuck in a loop too at the very end if you keep going around and around.
Yeah, you could.
So you have to break the loop.
You had to break the loop. And it was so good. And I was like, wow, if like there was maybe 2 or 3 other catacombs that were as smartly designed as that one with some kind of like puzzly gimmick or like some other kind of like, I had to think about it rather than just like running down the hallway looking for traps and like killing enemies that were trying to ambush me and getting to a boss that I've seen 15 times already. Thanks. Cool. I would have liked to actually going into the catacombs, but because I can literally count the number of like puzzly or like different type catacombs and heroes' graves on one fucking hand, I'm tired of seeing them. And I never had that feeling with all 140 of the shrines in Breath of the Wild.
I think the other problem with these dungeons too are when I first started playing this game, I was like wowed by like there's so many things to collect. I can get summons, I can get weapons, I can get like flasks, and I can get like golden seeds, and I can get like tier bottles to upgrade my flasks and all these like different things. I'm like, there's so much stuff to collect in this. and it's insane and it's crazy and it's awesome. And then I get to the end of like a dungeon and I'm like, man, I fought tooth and nail to get through this dungeon and I need arcane for this weapon. I don't have any arcane. I gotta level up like 10 times to get enough arcane for that. I'm never using this weapon. What a waste of my time.
Whoa, this is worthless.
This is worthless. Versus at the end of like a shrine, you get something that is universally going to be useful for everybody, an orb that then contributes to upping your health or your stamina. And even then you can collect like items throughout that dungeon, whether it's like a different weapon, but in Breath of the Wild, you can wield anything you want. It's not like you're going to get an axe that you can't wield because you don't have enough strength. You can just pick up anything and use it.
Yeah, it's just temporary, so you don't want to you might not want to blow it on a smaller person.
Right. So, in this game, I think I think to Elden Ring's benefit and detriment, like the variety of stuff that you can get is really cool. But, there are a shit ton of summons in this game, and that's a really cool concept. I like the idea of summons, and I like that there's so many of them, and that they all that a lot of them work differently, and some of them even function differently in that it's like this, you summon this guy here, and he's just going to stand here and patrol this area, and he's going to fight anything that comes close to him, or these guys will follow you around, or you get 3 wolves, and they all share like all this aggro, or you get the shield guys that Tyler was talking about, where there's like 5 of them, they got a shit ton of health, they don't even attack, they just draw aggro. But there's really like 3 really good summons, and once you have one of them, all the other summons essentially become useless.
Correct.
Yeah, I think the general theme is pretty much for everything in Elden Ring is that everything in the first couple areas works extremely well, because all the weapons and stuff you find, you don't really need too much stats to get to wield. All the you're getting new summons, and you don't have like 200 of them already. You haven't seen all the patterns of the dungeons, but like it didn't have enough content to fill up the rest of the game. And then once you're kind of in a build, you can't make good use of all the other stuff. And especially if you're trying to play it like a traditional Souls, where you're not using the summons and stuff, and trying to make it more of a challenge for yourself, that stuff is useless for you. So you can go through an entire catacomb and get nothing.
Yeah, it's at that point you're just doing it for the sake of completion.
So I mean, I'm super conflicted about this game, because like Limgrave, it was some of the most fun in an open world I've ever had. Limgrave was phenomenal.
Yeah, no, I would agree.
Like if I had that same feeling throughout the entire game, I would have liked it better than Breath of the Wild. And I don't know. I like the Souls formula. I'm not like a huge Legend of Zelda guy, but I still loved Breath of the Wild. But definitely Elden Ring, I felt like it stopped being phenomenal too early.
Yeah, and I think it's just that like it just keeps going, and I'm just like,
let's get to the end.
I was like, these level designers were really like, no, give them another area and make it even more bullshitty than the last one. And it's just like, how long is this? I just when do I get to the end of this?
That's the neat part.
It never ends. It just keeps going. I thought that I had a grasp of how big this map is. Nope, motherfucker, there's a whole underground area, and it's broken out into like 3 different parts. And there's like a whole nother area that's not the underground area, that's like an above ground area or something. I don't know. I haven't gotten that far. I just know it exists.
I can't believe I missed jumping down that one tiny little ledge in the back, and it led to literally 3 giant areas.
That whole area is like for just one side quest. Like and that's all around.
It's not like you can't get there through like a giant gateway or like a door. It's something that you. Granted, it's not like super hard to miss.
If you weren't looking for it, or like you just ran through that area. For sure. Yeah,
I can't believe crazy though. That area where you get through the Eternal City and it leads to Deep Root Depths, and that leads to this like the Lake of Rot, and that leads to like the other shit. You can get to Deep Root Depths in another way, because I found a second entrance into the Deep Root Depths.
So did I.
Really?
From the madness room, right?
I went out.
Yeah. Where you have to do the jumping puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't believe that's what that led to.
Bonkers.
Yeah.
I really do like the exploration factor of finding new areas in Elden Ring. It feels really fun to find a brand new area, especially when it's something that's not super obvious. That's definitely something I didn't. I mean, I loved exploring in Breath of the Wild, but there was never a point where it opened up a whole new part. I mean, you could obviously see each part of the map. It's just like it does. It's not like laid out.
Well,
until you
this,
get to
I
the
mean,
tower.
Breath of the Wild, they basically plop you in the middle of a big square, a giant
Right, yeah.
square. In this game, you're on more of a crescent, and you can go to Caelid, or you can go to the Weeping Peninsula, or you can go to
The rest of the game.
the rest of the game.
One thing I didn't like about Breath of the Wild's open world though is that I missed the upgrade guy, because if you didn't go on the road, you would just miss him.
Yeah, that was probably one of the. I've seen several people who thought that they're just, well, they, complaining about inventory, and it's like because they didn't go in the direction the game told you to go. And that's kind of true for this as well, although I feel like Elden Ring also has like you need to do this, and this to get to the point where you can like level up. But it's
Oh yeah,
it is much like in Breath of the Wild, you have to go and talk to this one character to unlock upgrades, and you have to do that like 3 times. You have to kind of just come across them, and I came across them all the times that I needed to, and I don't, maybe that's just because I was guided along enough to do that. But in Elden Ring, it's like literally just if you sit at 3 graces, then you unlock that, which is probably a safer way to do it.
So my thought process in an open world is I'm gonna pick a direction and I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
And I don't think an open world should lock you out of major like upgrades and stuff like that just for doing that. So I think Elden Rings was close enough to the beginning. Like you just had to go to that one bonfire in front of the.
You don't. It's not. It doesn't even. It doesn't. It can. I think
It's literally
any
any 3.
Yeah.
As long as you rest at 3 graces,
any 3?
Melina will show up, and as long as you
Yeah.
rest at any
nice. Okay.
6 graces, she'll take you to the holes. Or if you get to Margit, and I think if you die to him twice, then she just teleports you to the hold anyways. I think it is.
That's
Okay,
what
so that's
happened to me.
good.
I died
like
to
that.
Margit a bunch of times, and then she took me there.
Yeah.
So it does let you, like, if you wanted to go to the South Peninsula, which you pretty much should go, but it doesn't tell you to go there. You can do that, or you can go straight to Caelid if you really want. Go for it.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. That I think that method of, because there's really no way you can go wrong there, which is nice.
But yeah, also, so talking about, so I think we're done with the open world. I think we kind of exhausted that, unless you guys have any other last thoughts on that.
No,
Nope. I think
it's fun until it's not.
I will say that I do. The one thing I want to say is I thought that I thought they did a pretty good job in terms of variety in a lot of cases. Coming across like a new area that is aesthetically like different from another one. Everything is connected by a forest with green grass and golden leaves, of course, but between like interspersed with all that, you'll come across a lot of different interesting locations that I am always like, oh wow, this is pretty interesting and new. Like the windmill village with the dancing grannies, and
That was cool, yeah.
that there's just like there are quite a few places like that where it's like, oh, this is like different and interesting, and I like this, or not, because something bad happened to me.
Yeah, there's a few things sprinkled out.
But yeah, that's all I got on the open world.
So moving on to the combat, the gear, and stats in general, and I guess just character progression. So I guess we can kind of talk about what kind of build did you guys go for on this run primarily?
Can I just say, as someone who hasn't really played a lot of these games, I straight up am like, I was probably 30 hours into this game, and I'm like, I don't know what fucking dexterity does. Like this game, I know how to go and look for it, but I'm just like, how important could it possibly be? And like that's part of the thing I feel like is really intimidating with a lot of these builds. And I don't, I'm like, I don't know if that's going to work, because I don't know if I'm built for it or if it'll be any good. There's so many stats on a lot of these pieces of gear, and your character also has just a shit ton of stats that aren't really explained unless you go out of your way to look for it.
So the menu does tell you.
Yeah, you can click that button that tells you what they do, but I don't even think
that says menu explanation.
Yeah, but even then, like sometimes
you don't know how useful it would be.
You don't know how useful that is, but there's also sometimes I have had weapons that there's a little section on each weapon that has this called secondary effects, and what that means is that if a weapon does something other than what a weapon normally would do, it has some sort of buff, or it's strong against a certain type of enemy, or it does a certain type of like element, it's listed in that secondary effect. Makes a lot of sense. But you can press one of the 3 buttons to change one of the 4 views to look at weapon information on this, and you'll find out if you read the fucking 3-paragraph long weapon description, the middle paragraph will actually explain the weapon does more damage but takes more FP costs. And it's like, what? Why wasn't that in the secondary like effect explanation?
That's completely fair.
So you've been using Lucette's staff.
It's just that's the example that I could think of. I've had other weapons that are like that too, but I actually use that weapon, so I'm familiar with that one. But it's now I'm like, okay, let me go look through like one of the 3 menus and see like what this weapon actually does, because I might not get all the information on this weapon even from the view that's supposed to show me literally everything about the weapon.
So yeah, so like the whole series in general has done a terrible job of explaining stuff about all these stats and things, not necessarily about what they do, because they usually explain that all right, but more or less how they scale and things, because in the previous games you would never know that like damage has like a soft, or like these skills have a soft cap, which means they get less effective after a certain point. In Elden Ring, which I didn't know, is that I think from like 20 to 40, it's actually even better on, at least in vigor.
Oh, really?
Which I didn't know, because I stopped at 20 thinking that was the initial soft cap. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to level vigor for a while. And then I kept getting like, I've seen videos online with people health bars that go like across the screen. It's because they went from like 20 to 40 and like tripled their health.
Yeah, vigor is actually one of the clearer ones, because when I upgrade my vigor, I can see exactly how much my HP went up from where I was at before. But a lot of the other stuff can be more confusing. It can be a little bit more or less straightforward, or less just visually clear of like, what difference does that make? How much does my damage increase when I up my strength by 3 stats?
Yes, I think secondary effects are also a big confusing mess sometimes. Sometimes they'll do stuff that it's not even listed. Like,
yeah. And there are a lot, I mean, at least with int builds, there are a lot of like int gear. There's a lot of int gear that does like that, where it has a secondary effect that is in the item description, not in the secondary effect.
The talisman would be like increased jump attacks. Yeah, but like how much?
Yeah, exactly. Like what difference does that really make?
When it says boosts anything, I'm like, oh, cool, great, I guess. Boost by like 5%, 20%. Like that's pretty useful information to know.
I'm not going to go out and do like, I'm not going to stop for like an hour to compare a bunch of weapons to see like percentage differences, or if it's like flat or whatever.
Yeah.
I could do that. I could do all the math.
I could, but no,
or
I
could just
wiki.
play through the game.
Yeah, so
anyways,
confusing.
Anyways, I did an int strength build because that was what people said was the best build in the game or whatever at that point.
You mean int dex?
No, I didn't do dex. I did strength.
Aren't you using Moonveil?
Yeah, that didn't take that much dex.
But it doesn't. Oh no. Okay, so here's the problem: is that it doesn't scale off of strength. I don't think that well. So you're getting less out of it.
Maybe.
So you leveling strength is just a worse version of you leveling dex at this point, if you're using Moonveil. Because weapons have different scaling.
No, I think they all scale. Well, unless it maybe over the course of the upgrade, maybe it does. But I think at this point, Moonveil still. I haven't like upgraded it fully. So
it's like they're like descaling or something, like C or
yeah.
B.
I think it scales on int a little bit more than the other two, but I think strength and dex both scale evenly at this point.
Okay, so you probably don't need the strength though.
I was supposed to say strength isn't really doing you a whole lot though. Also, dex increases casting speed, which would be nice for you.
Yeah, see, that's the one of those things where it's like, what does dex do? It's like, oh, it increases my.
I think it definitely tells you that though in the menu.
Well, it's weird because strength is just strength. It's just how hard you hit with strength weapons, and then dex is how hard you hit with dex weapons, how much damage you take from fall damage, and it's how fast you cast spells. Like dex is stacked in 3 different ways, and strength is just hurt or hit.
And then they usually get bleed.
And they get bleed. Cool.
And
great.
like when I upgrade strength, it makes me like happy because like all my stats go up. Like my defensive stats, all the numbers become blue because they're going up.
Wait, strength does that?
It technically leveling up anything does that. Your soul level dictates your defenses, your physical defenses.
Oh, is that just soul level?
Hold
Yeah,
on. No, wait. Hold. It might not.
Because I feel like there's been points where I've upgraded strength. I'm like, wow, that upgrades a whole bunch of stats versus like when I do other things, it doesn't do that. So maybe it's like at a certain level of each, you know, if you get like dex up to a certain point, then it ups your defenses. I don't know. See, this is part of my.
It affects your physical defense as well, apparently. Weird. I did not know that.
Does.
Yeah. Well, let me see. Let me check dex.
Maybe dex ups your magic defense or something.
Well, that's what it does. Or mines.
Or
one of
mine.
Advanced armaments boosts attack power, shortens spell casting time, softens fall damage, makes it hard to be knocked off your horse.
What? I didn't realize I did that.
Why does it do that? Why?
The thing and the thing is, you know, yeah, there is a description in the menu, and I could read all that, but one, they throw you into the game, and there's a lot of mechanics in it, and I'm like, I just want to play this game. I don't want to read all the description of all this stuff in the menu. But also, you know, when I see faith or int or arcane, the way that I process these stats these are just like the caps on like weapon scaling. Like I need to have invested in this stat in order to be able to use this weapon, and then my weapon will scale based off that stat. So I kind of I didn't think to myself, well, I need to know what dex does because I need to know that it makes my spell speed faster. I just was like, no, dex is used to block me from being able to wield any weapon. I just need to be able to make sure that I have enough dex that I can use certain weapons, and certain weapons will scale really well off of dex. And maybe dex, and I assume like dex weapons use, you know, dexterity is used by certain types of weapons, you know, because int is used by magic weapons, and faith uses faith weapons, and arcane uses, I don't know what arcane uses, but
not much.
Not much. And so that's like, that was what I assumed those stats were for. I didn't think to myself, well, they also have like 4 other effects, like preventing me from getting knocked off my horse. Because why would I think that? But also, I guess that's probably not that important in the grand scheme of things.
Congrats.
If leveling up my dex prevents my fall damage by 5%, is that really going to do anything?
I hate how stacked dex is in this game. Me who just wants to ooga booga.
Me doing a strength faith build and realizing that strength does nothing for me, and faith also similarly does nothing for me.
No.
Oh no.
Faith has a ton of stuff in this game.
Yeah, but congrats if you can get to the 15-second animation to do less damage than any sorcery.
Okay, so doing damage with faith, I never did. Screw that. But you could do a dex faith.
Yeah, you just got to get your dex high enough so that your spells cast really fast. That's how that works, right?
Boom.
Isn't that great? I think it's like every 10 points is like 3 frames shorter or something like that.
Perfect. You just 300 dex to go.
But yeah, I guess that brings us into some balancing issues. Like doing a dex bleed build or doing an int magic build is significantly better than doing a strength build or faith build for sure, or a mixture of those two.
Yeah, I've been doing it.
Everything's weak to bleed.
Everything, because bleed is percentage based. So
yep,
every boss, the more HP a boss has, the more damage you're dealing with bleed.
So it never gets worse.
Yeah, it never falls off. In fact, it's technically getting better the further you get into the game.
Yeah,
insane.
Anytime I was playing online, it was people either spamming magic at me or using rivers of blood. It's like the fact that you can bleed people in 1 to 2 hits sometimes is insane.
In general, scaling and balance is just fucked because you get the things that are like really overarching where dex weapons are really just better than strength weapons. All right, fine. Basically every other Souls game has been like strength is generally better than dex, or like, you know, pyromancies were just like better than sorceries and Dark Souls 1, stuff like that. But then you get into like the nitty-gritty of it where it's like spells in general aren't worth it because faith stuff doesn't do enough damage and it's 15 seconds long cast animations. And if you get hit during any of it, you're staggered out of it. Or you could do sorceries. Sorceries are much faster and they still deal pretty good damage. Or you could use literally any weapons Art of War and deal more damage than literally any other spell in the game. It costs less FP. You have hyper armor during it. And you could just keep spamming it. So why use spells when you could have any katana with any of their Arts of War and deal more damage with less risk?
Well, I still feel the magic does enough damage to warrant it.
No, it doesn't. If you look at any of the Arts of War for like the weapons that have the really good ones, in terms of FP cost to damage conversion, they just deal more damage. Rivers of Blood, Moonveil, the Sword of Night and Flame or Sorcery and Flame, I can't remember what that one is.
Hoarfrost Stomp.
The Blasphemy Blade, Blasphemous Blade? I think it's Blasphemous Blade. Basically, all of their Arts of War are so good for their cost that you can't do enough damage. Yeah, you can do something weird with like int builds where you do like the super laser, it just delete an enemy. But if you miss it or they dodge or whatever, you're now screwed. And that takes up either all of your FP or you have to use the 10 seconds of like no mana cost. And again, with Rivers of Blood, you can just spam Rivers of Blood 6 times in a row, only so use half of your FP bar and still have killed every boss in the game.
I use the art on the horn, which shoots out like a million bubbles and it melts bosses. It's insane.
Yeah. How much FP does it cost?
None.
Exactly. My point. Let me bring it to you this way. My best faith incantation takes up literally my entire FP bar.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, they take the cost so much.
Mines, and it deals about 2,000 damage. If I do Rivers of Blood, Blasphemous Blade, or the Sword of Sorcery and Flame, I can deal like 3.5k, and it costs 10 FP. What? I have to spend 150 to deal 2k, or I could spend 10 to do double that? No, absolutely not.
Yeah, it's kind of bonkers.
Borked. All of it is borked.
The numbers are just wrong. Everything is wrong about the numbers, and once you hit the second half of the game,
I refuse to change. I'm going to beat this game of Strength Faith. I don't give a shit.
That's what I did. I just also used Mimics here. I don't regret it. I would have just gotten frustrated. Weird. Some of the bosses you're about to fight are dumb, so have fun.
I will. I won't, but I will. I'll be stubborn and
definitely no 15-hit combos.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'll be stubborn, consistently use the stuff that I know if I just respec into Dex in, I would just delete things from existence. I don't have any problem whatsoever, and I'm still just going to use Strength Faith.
Yeah.
It really makes you feel like Elden Ring.
Yeah, Elden Ring.
Also, a thing against if you're trying to go for a big beefy boy build, armor is useless in this game. I think I did the comparison between the heaviest armor and the lightest armor, and it was like it had to have been at most 25%
for the
which is practically
negation.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So like, why would you ever level up endurance so much? And endurance doesn't scale as well as like vigor, so you don't get that much more stamina out of it. You get a little bit of stamina, and then you get equip load. But like, why would you ever wear the heaviest armor in the game when you could put on the one talisman that increases all your defenses by like 10 to 15% anyway?
I think it's 15%. Yeah.
It's insane.
That one talisman is better than like 90% of the armors in the game.
I know.
It is strange too, because poise, like you can wear the heaviest armors and like the bull goat armor, which gives you like 80 poise or whatever. And finally you can just hyper armor through shit in complete attacks. But if you're wearing anything that isn't that, I think the break point is 40 poise. 40 poise is like when you can finally take one hit before you're staggered out of attacks. 40 poise is a lot, I gotta tell you, because I'm wearing like the medium-ish knight armor and I'm at like 29. So still at 29 poise, 30 poise, I never hyper armor through through anything. And yet here we are again. Literally every enemy in the game, I can do a heavy charge attack or like a heavy jumping attack power stance, and they just fucking charge through it. It does not matter.
Yeah,
very cool game.
For me to get it to consistently work, I had to do full bull armor, and I had to use the Wondrous Physic with the bonus poise and the talisman, which is literally maxing it out. And even then, it wasn't 100% consistent with it worked in Dark Souls 1 because Havel's armor was super good, but you were almost certainly fat rolling. But you could actually take a hit without being knocked around.
Getting knocked over or losing 90% of your health, even at 50 vigor. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, the damage at the end game damage is insane. It doesn't matter what you're wearing, doesn't matter what your level is. I feel like bosses do percent damage. I respect to dump all my points into vigor and I just kind of rebalance my set, and I feel like I was still taking the same amount of damage. Percentage wise. Everything two hit combos you. Or 2 shots, I should say.
Yeah.
It's definitely what it feels like at the point that I'm at as well.
Well, I mean, you also, for the longest time, had 12 vigor.
Yeah.
But he has a lot now.
You vigorous bastard.
You got 40 now.
Yeah, I got 40 vigor.
Which I'm I was surprised. I'm yeah,
I still
I think my vigor is
hold a wet tissue paper though.
Mine's between 40 and 50, and I usually wear pretty heavy armor. And I usually wear defensive talismans too, and I still feel like I have to dodge everything. You can't, if you fat roll in this game, you're just dead. You have to dodge most of the moves.
And before the patch that fixed shields, it shouldn't even say fixed, that made shields better, you couldn't block anything either. Now I use a great shield, and I think it's at 70 stability, guard stability, whatever it is, and I use the great shield talisman, and I can block some combos, but there are a lot of combos where by the end of it, my guard is still broken, and the last hit still gets to slap me in the face for the increased damage. So again, you should probably just dodge through everything anyway.
They really want you to dodge.
And that's weird because that's what they wanted you to do in Sekiro or Bloodborne
for sure. Well, because they didn't have it.
Also, you're geared towards that, where you're a very quick, fast character no matter what. You're at light equipment load no matter what. So you should be dodging a lot because you're a quick, light, agile character.
You're not hulking around a club.
You can be any build, and yet they still feel like you're being forced into trying to do an agile character because blocking just isn't really going to be a thing. And you can't just tank hits if you're wearing heavy armor like you could with Havel's armor in Dark Souls 1. So it's still just dodge city. Or parrying, if you can time the parries correctly. But I refuse to learn parrying after 14 years of playing these games. I'm not going to learn now.
The parrying is a ton of fun in this game. I will say the parrying is a lot of fun. Once you get past the first half of the game, you can't risk it because if you miss the parry, you're dead. Simple as.
Hell yeah.
I think I parried bosses consistently up until Godskin Noble, and then at that point I was kind of on the fence. I'm okay, yeah, I've been missing quite a bit, and it's punishing me a lot. After that, I couldn't do it anymore.
I use magic. I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
That's to say, I'm Ryan just does the dex and
big brain.
I'm sorry, strength in, apparently.
Apparently, your strength. but you might want to respec again.
I got that really big sword that glows, and I wanted to use it.
Oh, the Moonlight Greatsword?
Hell yeah,
Moonlight
dude.
Greatsword.
Heck yeah.
Love that sword. I love it every time it's in every game.
I'm gonna do a run on one of these games one day with Moonlight Greatsword. I've never done it before because I never level in.
Well, it was a faith weapon in Demon Souls.
Was it really?
Yes. Fucking filthy ass int users. Yeah, because no one ever used that.
You took everything from us.
Because no one used faith in Demon Souls, and here I was using faith, and I got this sweet ass glowing moon sword. Oh hell yeah, this is broken. Awesome. And it was great. It was awesome. And then they're it's actually int now. And I was so angry. It was my wedding gift from my waifu, and I can't even use it.
All right. I think we ragged on the game quite a bit. So I think let's wrap up our thoughts. All in all, as much as I had issues with it, I still think the Souls formula is a really fun formula. And as a standalone game, I would still consider it better than most of the AAA garbage out there. But in terms of a Souls game, it's definitely on the lower end of my favorites for sure. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's definitely easy. I feel like generally easier to rag on a game than to talk about the things that I like about it because I'm just a spiteful, hateful person, I guess. But you know, I had a good experience with this game overall, I would say, and especially I think the first half of it was really enjoyable, and it has literally kind of wore thin on me, and I wonder if I would feel differently about this game if I stopped playing it for like a month and then came back to it, and then finished the rest of the game off, or if I would still be like, man, when is this game gonna end? But I don't know. I've enjoyed it, but I'm not gonna play Elden Ring 2. 10 out of 10.
I'll play Elden Ring 2 when they inevitably do it. This game sold like hotcakes.
Yeah, like sold more than the rest of this franchise combined.
Yeah, that it worries me that they'll continue down this. I mean, I feel like this pattern could work if they shore up some of the issues, like the balance issues and then the content issues towards the end. But I honestly would rather have a more streamlined experience with just a really dedicated challenge that they put out, like in all the other games.
Yeah, I mean, I've griped about the open world wearing thin. I've griped about bosses being reused way too often. I've griped about bosses like kind of being overtuned to where it feels like I just push back because I'm pissed and I'm spiteful. And then I've griped about weapon balance and stat balance being literally non-existent in this game. And yet I'm still having fun. I'm still enjoying it. Just like off the strengths of the design, like the core designs of the Souls franchise. And if Elden Ring 2 is more of the same of this, I might join Ryan and just not play it and wait for like any other FromSoft game.
I'd have to see how much
Bloodborne 2.
I'd have to see how much it changes.
Any other FromSoft game.
I think
Dark Souls 2 too.
The biggest downfall is that it's so much like Dark Souls 3.
No, it's Dark Souls 4. You know what? Actually, that's what it is a complaint of mine. This game didn't change enough to be called Elden Ring. It is literally Dark Souls 4, and I wish it had changed enough to be Bloodborne or Sekiro, where they actually felt like they were molded closer to what that vision was.
And I think it's using the same engine as Dark Souls 3 as well. It has to be.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Like I'm going back and playing a bunch of the games in the series now, and playing the Demon Souls remake. It looks beautiful. I wish they would just take whatever engine Bluepoint made and put it into the next game, because everything about Demon Souls feels amazing. Like I don't care how many times you've played Demon Souls, but replaying it, you don't get, it doesn't get old. The combat animations, the sounds, the lighting, it's beautiful.
And Demon Souls is exclusively for PlayStation 5, right?
The remake, yes.
Yeah, the remake is. Versus this game was also for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One.
This is for
everything.
Yeah,
everything except Switch.
Yeah.
Filthy Switch users.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did like a streaming thing though, but that'd be
terrible. Yeah, more cloud
that
gaming.
Would be so bad.
Yeah, I gripe about this game a lot. I enjoyed it. I think it has some major issues that could have been resolved with like a little bit more work, or maybe could even like resolved with some patches or DLC maybe or something. But I really hope that Elden Ring 2 doesn't double down on some of these issues. It would be upsetting.
Yeah.
Just don't make one summon inherently better than, and obviously better than all the other ones. Jesus.
Oops, another me. Especially for people who use bleed, because you get twice the bleed.
It's true.
It's disgusting.
Think about that.
You know what's even better to kind of like finish this off? Mimic Tear is so busted because it has infinite FP, it has infinite stamina, and it also has infinite uses of whatever items were in your inventory. So if you give it any of the like stat boosting things where the buffs, where it's like party wide buffs, it can basically keep spamming those party wide buffs literally forever because it doesn't run out of items. It can spam magical buffs like the faith buffs again literally forever because it's infinite FP. And if you give it something like Bloodhound Step, it can spam Bloodhound Step and never get hit because again it has infinite FP and infinite stamina. It's so weird how busted Mimic Tier is. And again, if you give it bleed procs off of percentage based like HP. So if both you and your Mimic are using bleed, you can just delete bosses from existence.
And then you could do one Katana bleed, one Katana frost, and then you're both doing bleed and frost.
Oh yeah.
And then that's even worse.
But just from the fact that the Mimic has infinite FP, stamina, and consumable uses,
and also a ton of health if you upgrade
the greatest thing to use. I know it has.
It has more HP than you, I think.
It does. It has way more HP than you do. I don't know how the HP scales on Mimic Tier. Maybe it's just based upon like rank 1. It has
something like that.
Like just the level ups of the grave flowers. But you can be a squishy ash mage and you can barely summon Mimic Tier, and Mimic Tier still has like quintuple the amount of HP that you do. I don't understand how the HP scales up for that summon, and I don't care to because it's busted either way. They nerfed it, and it's still without a doubt the best summon in the game.
Yeah, I didn't see too much of a difference before and after.
I think they reduced its HP and reduced its damage values, and again, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So, message to the devs: please put some more effort. If you're gonna do open world again, please focus on the balance, and then try not to make the duplicated bosses and stuff so in your face, I guess.
I'd rather the game be 30 hours shorter.
Yeah, just cut out cut out the snow area, and I think it'd be an okay length.
Yeah,
I'd agree with that.
I would agree. Yeah, that'd be good. Golden City's like the last area.
Well, yeah. Well, that was our review of Elden Ring. Please don't review Bombas. We still, like we said, we still enjoyed the game. But it is important. I think it's important to point out the flaws in it.
I think it's really important to criticize things that you enjoy more so than things you don't enjoy, because you want to see it improve consistently. And I'd love to see this formula get improved, because if they improve those things, Elden Ring 2 would just be absolutely phenomenal.
It could be.
Yeah. I mean, I jerk off Breath of the Wild all the time, but I could also bitch about it for hours. So.
Oh yeah, it definitely has flaws, but it's still like one of the best games that came out in the past decade. So, yeah.
Don't be afraid to criticize the things you enjoy.
Do you guys have any criticisms? Let us know in the comments below or wherever you're watching this. And next time we'll talk about something else. We haven't decided yet. Bye.